Welcome to Science with Soul. I'm Dr. Lottie Valentine and the host of this program. I'm a physician, evidential psychic medium, international keynote speaker, and the author of Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul. This podcast was inspired by events from my own life, and as I have journeyed through life, it has taught me that we're part of a greater divine web of interconnectedness. I have walked the path of illness, healing, and transformation, and after experiencing 2 near-death experiences, I became clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient, and I was guided to attend medical school at the age of 54. In this podcast, we will meet many different types of doctors, healers, spiritual leaders, educators, and other interesting souls. And it is my hope that you will gain information from this podcast to help create a path of healing your own life physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and bridge the gap between science and soul. Welcome to Science with Soul. I'm Dr. Lottie and the host of this podcast. Today, I am so excited and honored to introduce to you Itzhak Beery, who is an internationally recognized shamanic leader, healer, speaker, community activist, and author of 3 Amazon bestseller books. Itzhak was born in an Israeli Kibbutz. He had a fine arts career and was the owner of an award-winning boutique ad agency in New York City. A midlife crisis led to his transformation from a skeptical atheist and business executive into a passionate believer aligned with his life's purpose. Since 1995, Itzhak bridges the spiritual and practical wisdom his indigenous and Western teachers entrusted in him. He was initiated into the circle of 24 Yachaks of Imbabura by his Quechua teacher in Ecuador and by Amazonian Kanamari Pache in Brazil. Itzhak is the founder of ShamanicPortal.org, the Andes Summit, and co-founder of the New York Shamanic Circle. He is on major global spiritual centers faculties. Itzhak received the Ambassador for Peace Award from the Universal Peace Federation and the UN. Welcome, Itzhak. It's an honor to be talking with you today.
It's my pleasure, Lotte.
Can you tell the listeners what a shaman is? Where does that come from?
So many of us heard probably the word shaman, and there's so many different variations and of definition of that word. But the real word saman came from the Tungus tribe in Siberia, and the true meaning of that, or the proper meaning of the translation of the word, is the keeper of the fire. And it has nothing to do with person who make magic or doing healing or doing ceremonies or all of that. Although this is part of what the shamans does. But the main responsibility is for the well-being of the community, the physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being of a community. It is that keeper of the fire in the dark night that keeps the tradition, the songs, the legends, the mythology, and the connection between the people in the community. So the main responsibility of the shaman is to bring to keep the history, the tradition, the stories, but also the physical and emotional well-being of the community. And part of it is the healing part or the ceremonial part, and all of it is for that particular reason. So some people may today call themselves shaman because they know how to do boom, boom, boom with a drum and do a journey to the unseen world. That's nice. It's very important. but that doesn't make them a shaman. A shaman is a person that takes responsibility as a central role in a community for the well-being of other people, not just for themselves.
Oh, I love that explanation, especially the keeper of the fire and really holding the community together. So what led you to this path? What happened? I know you had this midlife crisis, and all of a sudden you were on a different life path. Tell us about what happened and how did you get on this road?
I mean, I grew up in a kibbutz in Israel. Kibbutz is a communist commune in which everybody is equal and all working as a together for the main well-being of the community, which is a lot of what I do now. Actually, those values of social responsibility or the caretaking of other people. That was ingrained in the kibbutz, and we were, of course, in Israel, so we were Jewish, but we never really practiced any kind of spirituality or religion, because the people who came at that time from Europe, they protested against all the religious customs, and they wanted to create a new person, and a new person that is working the land, that is connected to the land, connected to the season. They wanted to reborn what the Hebrews or what the Israelis were taken away from their land for 2,000 years. The Romans took the Hebrews and they sent them into Europe. And in Europe, they didn't allow them to work the land. So there was a yearning to reconnect with the land, to be farmers, to grow vegetables, to have roots in the old land. And I grew up in that place where the emphasis was about connection to nature. We were on the slope of a mountain. We climbed the mountains. We knew every name of every flower and trees and animals and bugs and mushrooms. We were so intimate with nature, but we were not really paying any attention to any of the spiritual work. Actually, it was supposed to be dismissed, and my father told me that to be a very, very afraid of people who are religious because of, we know why, right? And so I grew up with a very strong, intimate connection with nature and community and the values, but never thought that I have any kind of power in that department of the unseen department. And not that I didn't have visions. I did have visions, but I thought it was because I'm an artist. So I used to paint, I used to draw, sculpture, and I was a very artistic child, and I had a lot of imagination, of course, which is, part of our work. But I never associated with spiritual, but I always was attracted to that. I had friends who were healers, readers, card readers, and all that. It fascinated me, but I always felt that I don't have that. And when I reached the age of around 40, I felt that all this advertising that I was doing and the artwork, the arts and the fine art and the artwork and all of that, it's just that I asked myself why I'm doing it all. And it really didn't make sense to me to be working commercially to help Gucci and Revlon selling more product that nobody needs.
So
Really
then
did
what
not.
happened? Did you just get on an airplane and go to the Amazon, or what happened?
Well, actually, I went on the plane, but I went to Hawaii
Mhm.
because a friend of mine invited me to the Big Island. There was a men's weekend there, and I, like, everything happening as a coincidence. I just, I called a limousine to take me to the airport, and I stopped by bookstore, Barnes and Noble, to pick up a book because I didn't have a book. It's like a long flight to Hawaii. So I end up buying a book that says Hawaii on it, and that was a book by Hank Wesselman, one of the amazing shamanic teachers, and he wrote a series of books later about it's called Spirit Walker, about his experience with his descendant, like people in the past, and what happened to our world um, in global warming. And actually, we are now actually experiencing what he experienced in 1994, what he came up with the book in 1994. That was a new book at that time, and I read it and I thought, my God, he's answering a lot of my questions. And I was like sitting on the plane and crying because it was so emotionally connected. And at the end of the book, he was mentioning a workshop by Michael Harner, who started the course Shamanism. And it was a coincidence that when I came back from Hawaii, Michael Harner was teaching a course at the New York Open Center. So I said, it's so strange. I just read a book about him, and he's coming to New York. I'll take it. And I took it, and it was just really quite amazing. I was doing my first shamanic journeys, and I was not only that I was seeing, but what I was seeing really meant a lot to the person I was journeying it for. But the interesting part was that I was journeying to another woman, and I saw the anaconda. And I mean, where would I see anaconda in New York City? And then there was another elements there, and she says, "Yeah, I just came back from the Amazon. I was going on a trip with a group, and a few months later, I went on a different workshop with John Perkins, and John Perkins said that he's going to the Amazon. Actually, I took the same trip that she took, but I didn't know at that time." It revealed itself later.
Uh-huh.
So I went on that trip, and on that trip, I had my first ayahuasca ceremony, and I also met the people in the Andes, and I had this first experience with Limpia on the high Andes. I met Don Jose Joaquin Pineda, who later initiated me, and I became his apprentice. Um, I, I came back again a year later because it was such an enormously important experience for me, and then I got into depression because all these values that I was carrying all these 40 years before just didn't make sense to me. Doing all of that accumulation of property and commercialism and being the agent of all of those, making commercials to all of those people, I felt really lost. So for 8 months, I was depressed, and then I came out of it. I could not. I decided that I have to change, and then the change was that I decided to take all these tools that I have and work for nonprofit organizations. So I did most of my advertising later on for nonprofit organization. And then, but as I progressed with my career, I stopped. I did more and more advertising and more healing sessions and less advertising. And at that time, I was already organizing trips to the Rio Negro in Brazil with my other teacher, Ipupiara. And I went there for 6 years. I helped him take people on a trip to the Rio Negro area. We worked with many shamans, and so I got really involved in all of that, and we created the Shaman Portal, the New York Shamanic Circle. So I became a lot more busy, and I had less time for advertising. And slowly, the balance changed. And 5 years ago or so, after writing my books, I just didn't have any more time and energy or desire to continue to do promotion for something that is not meaningful for me, for my life. and so that's how I became full time. But but I'm not doing it full time. I'm seeing clients only 3 days a week, and I leave my also time for other activities.
So tell me about the different teachers that you met along the way. I know you mentioned Di Pupiara and Don Jose Piñara. What did they teach you? Like, what are the teachings that you carry today?
Well, in a way, I did not have a what we call I had a traditional teachings, which means that I was not a student. I was basically witnessing, which is what apprenticeship is not is mimicking, helping, serving, doing the work for the shaman, with the shaman, and spending time with them. I was incredibly lucky in that way that they were. So, I mean, I was spending a lot of time in organizing workshop for them and learning from them through the workshops. But most of my teaching for them was like personal conversation, eating Chinese food with
And learning
com-
about life. Love
and
it.
and just being
Uh-huh.
assisting in hundreds of healing. So when you're doing healing with a shaman, you're witnessing so much and you're learning so much. It's not anymore. It's not a workshop at Omega, or it's not a workshop, like one of those things that you took.
Mhm.
It's a real life experience, and sometimes it's really a very powerful experience of life and death, and or incredible, strongly emotional. So I learn uh, in the traditional way, not in the white person traditional way. Uh,
Mhm.
and I'm very grateful for that experience, because it was, and again, it wasn't something that I planned. I actually never believed that I have that the quality that it takes to be a shaman. I always put them on a pedestal. I thought that they have something that I don't have. It was them. They, especially Don Jose Joaquin Pineda, who pushed me to do healing work. Um, I I was the reluctant shaman, not a person that went to it like with this idea. It just happened in a way, and, and I truly believe that all of it happened in totally in accidentally, or in not in my conscious design. But I really I really follow my gut, or I follow some other direction. And I just want to say to that is that you know maybe 15 years after I started, and I started to work with evil spirit and negative energies and all these akura stuff that Ipupiara was teaching me to work with, and I got a letter from my cousin that they found some uh, brochure or some letters that was written about my great grandfather, who was a Kabbalistic rabbi and healer in Poland. He's quite well known at that time, and he devoted his life to the fight between good and evil. And I just like floored, to say the least, because it was the same. It was kind of almost like I was drawn by him to do this work, to continue his work. And I was a little surprised, because in my family nobody talked about it, and I never knew that. And somehow I was basically doing continue to do his work to bring light into the darkness.
Oh, that's a great story. How you're also carrying on that tradition. When you talk about getting into healing and doing different types of healing, what are the different types of modalities that you work with as a shaman to heal, to help heal somebody?
So in general, I do limpia work, or la limpia, the cleansing, clearing ceremony of the Andes. And I do work with the more Amazonian tradition of working with the Takuma needles and oils and and massage and things like that. So uh, then if you analyze the La Limpia ceremony, the way it was done in Ecuador in the mountains, it is it is a collection of modalities. It is not just one modality. So within that, you have working with alcohol and smoke, but it also work with uh, flower remedy, or work with oils. It works with stones. It works with crystals. It works with massage. It works with touch. It works as Reiki. So in I think that in my teacher, Pupiar used to kind of laugh at us, and it says people used to ask him, "What do you do?" He says, "Well, I do healing." He says, "Yes, but what kind of healing you do?" And he says, "Well, I do healing, whatever I see that you need." And I says, "No, but is it like Reiki?" Well, there is Reiki there. Is it like aromatherapy? No, there is aromatherapy in it. And he couldn't understand why we take one modality and take it out of the whole picture. So what I do is I do all of that, and we call it shamanic healing. So all of it is in it. Uh, what I think that it's so important for all of us to understand, maybe, that when you do acupuncture, acupuncture is one modality within what a person need. If you do aromatherapy, it's okay, but it's not the whole treatment. And so if you do Reiki, Reiki is part of what the persons need. So you need a ceremony, a whole ceremony that encompasses all of those experiences to create um, a deep connection between the person and the universe. In other words, the goal of that is to bring a person's into alignment and into connection with nature. Because when that happened, the river of light, the what we call meridians or whatever you want to call it, starts to flow. And when that happened, healing happened. So when you remove all those blockage, and that could be done in many different ways. It could be done through massage, through talk, through aromatherapy, through needles, through who knows what. Then healing, the body heal itself. But we have to allow that. We have to create a ceremony, because any healing happens in two conditions. One of them is with witnessing, in a community, when other people are there to watch you, to support you, to be with you. And one of them is when you return people into harmony with nature. And then the body starts to heal.
So, what do you think of Western medicine and the way we treat people in Western medicine today for, chronic conditions? Let's say, well, if you have a heart attack or you're in a car accident, you're obviously going to go to the ER. But what about people who have chronic conditions? They have diabetes, they have joint pain. Do you think that, integrating the type of modalities that you work with would help these people?
Well, of course. I mean, uh, what is diabetes? So, is it the body cannot work with sugar, too much sugar in your life? Uh, um, there is an emotional and emotional connection, spiritual connection, and then all the physical connection. So you want to see, first of all, if you have diabetes, you may want to start eating bitter uh, uh, plants, vegetables, and fruits, and all of that. Bitter. And the reason why many people in the Amazon don't have diabetes is because they eat bitter. They don't eat sugar. Our diet is totally out of whack.
Right. Absolutely.
So you have to understand that, right? So it's not that all of the sudden you get diabetes. It is something to do with your addiction. And your addiction, it might be that it's a society addiction to sweetness because of economical. We get children hooked on addiction, where indigenous people, they don't crave sweetness. So one thing is to work with that and to change their diet, to change their way they look at the world, and to have them more being conscious that everything they put into their body have implications. For instance, if you have issue with the joint, a lot of it is acidity. So acidity is sugar, it is alcohol, it is coffee, caffeine, spicy, and meat, red meat.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go to the pharmacy and take medication, but you can also treat it in a more responsible way by controlling what you eat, by understanding the cycle of what you are putting yourself into, and it's very important. So my third book was really about that, and how do you integrate Western medicine with shamanic healing, and I also work with other doctors to bring all of that together, because I believe that we need to marry the two together, the two systems. Like we talked about shamanic healing and other modalities like that as the alternative medicine, but the truth is that Western medicine is alternative to thousands, millenniums of usage of plants and spirit medicine. Western medicine is really new. It's really, really new. It's about 500 years only. I mean, we had great achievement. We are great technicians now. We can do really great surgeries, and I'm one of the benefiter of that. But it's not new. It's not old. It's just really, really new. The aspirin was invented like how many years ago? 100
Right.
and something years ago. And it's also plant-based. It's weeping willow. So we need to take the best of all. And when a person goes to hospital we need to provide him with emotional, spiritual care, and also nutrition, because the food in hospital can kill you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm right with you.
So I mean, we look at it as two separate modalities, but it's actually not, because it's the same person. So a person who um, emotionally ready spiritually and emotionally ready to go into surgery will recover better. And a person who works on the reasons why he or she got the cancer will have a better results with chemotherapy, not against chemotherapy. So I think that we need to marry the two of them together. We need to create a system that is not either or, but really care about the patient as a whole, as a human being. And I wrote about it in one of the books that there's a woman in Ecuador who got really, really sick. And her son was higher in the government. So he decided that he's going to get her the best doctors in Ecuador. So he went there, and she went to this sterile hospital and sterile room and the sterile doctor, and he just looked at her and gave her some medication and sent her home. Of course, he didn't take it because he didn't ask her what's her name. He didn't ask her how she's doing. He didn't ask her where she's from and how many kids she had. He didn't ask her any questions about her. He didn't see her. So when she went home, she says, I need to go to see the shaman. So the shaman were this is a true story. So she went to a shaman, and the shaman held her hands, and he says, Isabella, how are you doing? How's your children doing? How your grandchildren are doing? What do you eat? What are you doing? And slowly, she started to feel better because he saw her. So all those symptoms that she was having, it was anxiety. It was which we know anxiety creates stomach aches, right? So it was anxiety. It was all of those symptoms slowly disappeared, and she felt fine. She never took the medication. Now, if she had taken the medication, like most of us do, those medications create side effects, and then side effects create other diseases that you have to take another medication. So the idea here, don't take medication if you don't need to. Find a way to heal it naturally, so you're not going to have a second diseases pop up after those treatments.
How does plant medicine fit into this picture of healing people, things like ayahuasca? How do you feel about that?
Well, we have to separate between the two. So plant medicine, like ayahuasca, yahem, natem, wachuma, and some of those, yokoho, yokoyahe, and other things like that, they are bitter. And the bitterness of that plant kill viruses, bacteria, and parasites in the stomach. And we know that most of the diseases that we are dealing with starts in the stomach, when the balance in the stomach is too acidic or too environmental, not good for the client. So without the part of the hallucinating part, the bitterness part is essential for keeping the stomach pH neutral. And that's why it's so important. I would like to add another plant, which is tobacco. Not the tobacco that we smoke, but wild tobacco, because wild tobacco, if you drink it, it also kills bacteria and viruses. That's why it's a medicine. And you can also sniff it, and then you clean the system, the nostril system, and you open up the channels with tobacco. So there's a lot of those things. So the benefit of the physical benefit of plants, I personally believe that are greater than just the hallucinating part of it. Although sometimes you can't really separate between them, but I do believe that people who have any kind of diseases or chronic diseases need to do that. To drink guayusa, they need to drink yahe or ayahuasca, but for the cleansing of their digestive system. Incredibly important. We have between 3 to 4 trillion bacteria, viruses, and parasites in our body. 4 kilos of those in our little body. And those creatures, they give us a great service of, processing our food, but some of them are bad. Some of them can kill us, and they do. And for those plants are very good. Now the hallucinating part, if it's done correctly, and if it's done with supervision, and it was done with a person who understands the language of shamanism, the language of spirit, that could be beneficial. But when you're using it without preparation, without knowing, without guidance, without integration afterward, that could be, sometimes it could be devastating for some people. And I'm not saying that it's always like that, but it could be. And I think that it's, for right now, I think that the Western civilization is abusing it. And abusing it also are the shamans who serve those plants medicine. I call them bartenders because they don't have any qualification to, they were never initiated, or some of them were never initiated into it. They don't really know what to do when evil spirit shows up or other difficult situations arise. They leave it up to the people to deal with it, but they don't have any tools. Originally, in indigenous societies, plant medicine is given to children who are, less than 8 years old, like small dosages until they build up the strength, and it was given to them for healing, but mostly for helping them to understand the language, to understand the connection between the seen and the unseen world, the spiritual world and nature, and to so they can converse with the spiritual world. But if you come from New York City to the jungle without any preparation, and you start seeing all of those aliens and all these entities or snakes, you can get a little paranoid, as some people do. Is that more or less?
Yeah. No, it's there's, you always hear people talking about ayahuasca, and they're trying to find their kind of meaning of life, or finding some spirituality in that process. What advice do you have to those people? Is it good to do ayahuasca 4 times a year, or once a year, or once in your lifetime, if you're trying to find your spirituality?
I think that it's personal, but if you do decide to take ayahuasca or yahe or other plants, mushrooms, or yopo or whatever it is, you may want to integrate it into your life. And you may want to think, what is the message that you receive from them, from that experience, and work on it and bring it into your life. There are a lot of people who are done 20, 30, 40, 60, 80. Some people are doing it every other week, every week. Why? I don't understand why they do it. If you don't get the message that Spirit give you, if you repeat it, do you think you're going to get more? No. You need to allow or honor the medicine by manifesting that vision. I mean, spirit don't need you to waste their energy. So, for me, for myself, once a year, once every 2 years, I'm not running to do it. I'm still working on the same vision that I received in 1997. My work today is inspired by that vision. And it's that vision really gave me the power, the strength to do this work. So I'm not running to get another vision. What for? If this vision is your life work, do it instead of just entertain yourself with another. I wrote this article about that.
The bitter side of ayahuasca.
Yes, the bitter side of ayahuasca. That the shamans in the Amazon become greedy for the money of the white people or the Western people who come down there, because their life is changing and they need more money, or they perceive that they need more money, so they cut more of the vines, and they cut the trees, and they cook more, and they do it industrialized, especially in Peru and Colombia. They become greedy. They buy Rolex watches and they buy boats so they can take bigger groups and do more ceremonies so they can make more money in each of the evenings. Now, what would you do with all that money? I don't know, because if they don't share it with their community, they destroy the sharing community, the ecosystem that they are living in. And we are in the West, we are greedy because we feel empty, spiritually empty. And we think that going down there, we will discover what is that we are empty. So that the two sides feed each other and helping each other and become interdependent in the wrong way. I think it's pretty dangerous. It's pretty dangerous for the Amazon, for the forest itself, because the shamans really need to plant more of those vines and the chacarona trees, and for us, we need to come there with honor, with humility. Not just as a consumers, but also to learn to live like them, to honor them. It's a great lesson, and it's in many ways I feel a little distraught about all of that process, mostly because some of us from the north coming there and with a good intention, and they buy pieces of land in Peru and other places, and they start to create little hotels, and they make their own ayahuasca centers, and they take away basically the livelihood of the shamans. So and they raise also the real estate in the forest. And so in many ways, it pushed them out. It create, one of those shamans that came from Colombia and travel in the United States and in Europe, goes back after every trip with maybe $40,000, $60,000, $80,000. And he brings this to the Amazon. Imagine. What would he do with so much money, so much cash? So if he had just given it to the community to build schools, to build bridges, to make other people's life better, I would understand that, but they don't. And it really breaks the economic situation for all of a sudden you have rich people, poor people, you have jealousy and envy. It's not very responsible. So I think that we really need to learn to have empathy and to have understanding of the sacredness of that medicine, and not to be greedy. One cup a year is fine. If you work on it, if you don't get anything out of it, then work on it. Find out what it is that you didn't get.
Love it. So these indigenous cultures, how do they live? Like you said, they don't really have diabetes because they don't eat that. They live, off the land. What do you see in those? I know you have traveled a lot and worked with these indigenous cultures. What type of diseases do they have, or what is their dilemma compared to ours, being diabetes and joint pain and things like that? That's many of our problems are fed by the diet or the wrong diet. What are the things that you see they struggle with in terms of their health? Do they have diseases that stand out more in those cultures, or?
I don't. I in all my travel, I'm not sure that I've seen anything that was out of the ordinary. Well, first of all, in the Amazon, it's very different. People are walking barefoot. And when you are walking barefoot on the land, your electric magnetic field is totally different, and you are connected with this, so your health is better, right? So this is a
Yes.
commercial for people
Yeah.
to walk
Yes.
barefoot, because you
Yeah.
need to get your positive and negative
Yeah.
ions, so to be in sync. So barefoot, and they eat very little. They eat fish or tapir or some kind of animals when they need, maybe once or twice a week. They eat when they need. They don't have like 3 meals, and they're always active. And so some of them live for very long life. Like one of the shamans there, he's 108.
Wow.
And his
So,
son is what, is 89 now. And his other son is 80. These are people who are still active. These are people who are still doing ceremonies. These are people who are still building and going into the forest and pulling. So they are full of activities, and they eat cassava. Cassava is a very beautiful, strong protein root. Bananas. They eat meat, and they eat it responsibly. So a fish. So they have all the. So I don't see like there's definitely no diabetes. There's no heart attacks. There's no all of that disease that we have in the modern world. I mean, it's. I mean, if we want to be healthy, we should go there. Or well, actually, I don't think that we should go there, because otherwise we will destroy that. But but to live like that, with more imbalance with our food and the environment, and it's not that I'm trying to idolize it, but it's kind of true
yeah,
that
just changing our ways.
yes, more more connected to the cycle of nature, of life. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember. I'm trying to think about any particular disease. One of the things that is so interesting to me, like we were a few years ago, the shaman was at that time it was 104. His wife was 89, and he just broke his hip, and I was carrying him in a wheelchair to the ceremonial house, and we did a ceremony there, and it was really nice. And we said goodbye to them and to his wife, and a month later, his wife decided that it's time for her to go. And she called the family, and everybody came, and they sitting next to her. And the next morning, she passed away. She wasn't sick. She just decided this is for her. It's enough. She just knew,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody was. They were sad, but it was they accepted it that she came in and she came out. But it was on her own will.
Right.
And I'm not saying that everybody is lucky like that, but I don't remember in all these years, I don't remember somebody telling me that somebody died of a disease or something. I mean, I know that sometimes somebody kills somebody, but it wasn't like a disease. It wasn't like I don't remember any of that. That I had a woman there. She was 90, Bibi, in the Rio Negro area in Brazil, and she was quite an amazing woman at 90. And when she was doing ceremony, she turned herself into a 16-year-old beautiful girl. And she also died because she was just wanted to leave. It was not. She wasn't sick.
She just knew. Yeah, she
She
just
just knew.
knew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's more common in that culture, that they're just more aware because they're more spiritually connected and they just know it's their time? Or do you think Western people also have that ability, or we can learn to be more connected?
We can learn to be more connected. Yeah, but I think that if you've been there, you see that they have a lot more time to sit with the family and just sit by the fire or in the river, the sunrise and sunset. So I
Yeah, just repeat that last sentence because I lost you for a few seconds. They have more time to just sit by the fire.
yeah. So they have more time to sit by the fire, to be in the kitchen, to laugh, and you really see them a lot laughing and telling jokes and doing things around, cleaning and
Hmm.
just sitting and watching and more contemplating. There's a lot of contemplation in the forest.
Hmm. Especially compared to the Western world, where people
Well,
just rush from one activity to the other all day long and very little time to just sit down and contemplate.
yes, and it's also influenced our nervous system. It's also influenced the way that our digestive system work. It's all connected, one thing with the other.
Hmm. I know that you talked about a little bit before about journeying. Can you explain to people what the difference is there between journeying and meditation, or how is that different?
Um, so in Eastern meditation, or what we are calling meditations now, the idea here is that you sit and you let everything that comes to your mind, you release it to the ether. So you develop non-attachment to the world around you, or to the messages that you receive. You see something, you just let it go. You breathe it out. You send it out. Don't hold on to anything. So nothing stick. uh, and there is a benefit for it, of course.
Hmm.
I'm quite sure. I mean, I've done that for quite a few
Hmm.
years myself. But in the shamanic tradition, the meditation or the shamanic journey, what we call, is about allowing spirit to come and talk to us and to teach us. So when we close our eyes and we call spirit, spirit shows us different images or different, we allow her to hear or feel different messages. And in our tradition, in shamanic tradition, you don't let go of it. You actually follow it. You learn from it. and it takes you to where you need to learn or understand the question. So in meditation, you go there with no intention. The intention is to let go of everything that comes to create emptiness. In the shamanic journeys, you go with the intention to learn. You have a specific intention in your mind, and whatever you drift, you go back to it. You always keep intention, and it is very important because in the shamanic tradition, healing done through sometimes through going into the spirit world and sending intention for the other person that you're doing healing. So that's what is called, long distance healing. You're allowing that energy to come through you, and you direct it to that person, which is a great big difference between meditation or Eastern meditation and that. And one of the difficult things that I see in my classes is that sometimes people are doing meditation for years, 20 years, 30 years, and they are so trained to dismiss everything that comes to their mind that they claiming that they can't do journey work because they don't see anything.
Right.
But the truth is that they have to train their mind they have to change the way their mind works, but to hold on to those issues and ask what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And in the shamanic journeys, we work with spirit. Spirit is energy entities, and they have different entities to different realm, or the lower world, middle world, and the upper world, and we use them for different purposes. And the visions that we see are sometimes they are absolutely for what you see, and so most of the time it is a symbolic language. And one of the things that I usually teach in my classes is how to define what are the symbols and what they actually mean for a person. So it could be that water, things through the water symbolize the emotions, or things with mountains symbolizing places of reflection, of knowledge and teachings, and desert is a desert, right? And then what kind of animal you see. Each animal is an archetype. Has a different medicine, and what kind of colors, because each color is symbolizing different aspects of yourself. So yellow might represent the sun, the beauty of sunrise, the new beginning, right? The godness in you. The pink would be about the feminine aspect of you. The red could be passion. White is spiritual. Black is the mystery. So there's each color has its own different energy and meaning. And our role as the shaman and the person who's doing this journey meditation is to decipher what's the meaning of those journeys. And for many people who are doing this first times or a few times, they don't understand the meaning or the symbols of that. But if you start working with them and understanding the beautiful subtleties of it, you start to see that there is incredible value and messages, knowledge in those journeys. And those journeys, you can use it for yourself, or you can use it for other people. And especially when you do soul retrieval, or when you work with trauma, or when you work with other issues like that, it's a trove of energy, of information that you can use to heal other people.
So when you talk about soul retrieval, for those that are not familiar with that, can you just describe that briefly, what that means?
So in the shamanic tradition, there is a belief that our soul, which is an independent energy, ball or energy body is residing within our body. And every time we have trauma, and trauma is, my definition of trauma is that every time that something happened to you where you were frozen, where you are unable to react in a way to protect yourself from it. So your spirit, your emotion, and your body, your physical body, close and unable to deal with it. Many of us have time where you able to react, and then you become a hero. So let's say that somebody jump on you on the street, but you punch them back, or you moved, or you do something, then you are a hero. So it's not a trauma. The trauma is when you are frozen and something stuck in you. And that situation, some part of our soul, they believe, leave your body in order not to experience that pain. And when you work with soul retrieval, you are doing journey into the spirit world to find out those particular incidents, and you call that part of that the soul part that left to avoid that feeling that pain, to come back again, so the whole soul will come to become full and complete again. Now, of course, you don't want to do that. Many people try not to do that, but as long as you don't do that, you keep your old pattern always. And so if you have an issue about abandonment, that issue, if you don't do soul retrieval, will continue in your life. It will be about your lover left you, your husband left you, your girlfriend left you, your parents left you, and everybody leaves me all the time. And you create the same kind of scenery as an attempt to heal that moment of trauma. So the idea is to break that pattern. And the way you break the pattern is by speaking in our language, speaking to that part and ask it to come back, and to create integration with this part, with the person that is currently you are, with the idea is that the person that you are today is a person that can handle that trauma much better than the person when you were 4 or 3 years old.
That's beautiful. I think a lot of things could be healed with a soul retrieval, and people aren't even aware that there is something like that available to them. And they go through counseling, or maybe years and years and years of taking different kinds of medications, when in fact all they needed to do was work with somebody like you, that can help them put all those pieces back together.
Yes, and I think that it also it refers to a person, but it's also could refer to community. People who had, and it could be as a country. The United States went through a trauma in the Vietnam War, or in 9/11. It was a trauma because we were unprepared to defend ourselves, and we got it. And people felt so shocked, and there was nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And what did we do? Instead of healing that, we send our army to fight people. To fight people who never did it.
Yeah.
So, but that's a reaction to it. If we had done a soul retrieval for our nation, so it's not necessarily just for one person.
Mm-hmm.
It could be for a community, for a country,
right,
that suffered trauma.
Yes. Wow, there's so many different ways that we really need to think about to change the way we view things living in the Western world. And can you talk a little bit about the prophecy of the eagle of the north and the condor of the south?
Sure. It's very interesting because I was watching a video from Peru of two shamans interviewing one another. And they said that prophecy never happened. That nobody knows who's the prophecy, who brought this prophecy. And I was just like, it's very interesting. Because this prophecy became very popular now, but I heard it in 1996, almost 25 years ago, from a shaman in the Andes. So what I'm trying to say is that nobody knows where the origin of that prophecy came from. But it's not that important. The important is the symbol, and the important is the beauty of that, and how it rearranged the way we see the world around us. That I think that is very important. So the base of this prophecy is that the Quechua of the Andes count the time in periods of 500 years. So every 500 years, there is a new kuti, or a new pacha, which is a new time and space. So it's hard to explain exactly what pacha is, because pacha is also the earth, but it's not necessarily the Mother Earth. It is the reality, space, time. It's period of time. It's a more abstract concept. So Pachacuti is a correction of time. It is kind of similar to the Mayan in Guatemala, which they count the years in a Bactun, in the period of 20 Bactuns, 13 Bactuns. And each Bactun is a certain amount of period of time. And inside that, you have the years, the month, the days. But the 500 years started, the Pachacuti that we are in now started in 1993, 94. And it's the Pachacuti of the eagle and the condor. It's the returning of the feminine energy to our world. And the Pachacuti before was the 500 years of occupation of the Spaniard of South America, of the Latin America, right? This is ended. It began when they occupied it, and it ended in the fall of the Inca, of the Atahualpa, who were murdered by the Spaniard. So it's 500 years after that. We started in 1993. We started a new Pachacuti. That's where we are. And the symbols are the eagle. The eagle is the north. The eagle is a predator bird that build nest, that kill other animals, that are very territorial. It is our symbols for the army, the army of the United States, the army of Germany, the army of other countries. We always have that eagle, right, that presides over us. This is the military force. It's the masculine forces. And then we have the South America, which is the condor, and the condor is very different. The condor doesn't build. It always live off the earth. It doesn't kill. It only eats dead animals. So it's recycling. And it is the symbol of death and rebirth. And it also, when he eats the animals, he's always sharing it with other animals too, because they only eat part of that. And they all live in community. I don't know if you've seen community of condors. I was there in Chile on a cliff. You could see them all it's like a kibbutz, like they are all together there. Really beautiful. I mean, and
Hmm.
and they also always fly as a couple. They don't fly by themselves. They always fly two, for the two that live life together. The eagle is different. Both of those birds have big wingspan, and they both of them are flying the highest to God. So they are the symbols of our desire to connect with the sun God. And so they have the perspective, but each of them does it in a different way.
Hmm.
And the prophecy is that since 1993, the condor will start to fly into the sky with the eagle in a dance of harmony and peace and cooperation. And that will bring the value, the heart centered culture of the South with the mind centered of the eagle, or the masculine will meet the feminine, and they will fly together in the beautiful blue skies in dance of harmony and cooperation and peace. And at that time, around that time, I started my journey in 1995, which is a year I heard the calling a little late, or I couldn't get it. Uh, those shamans in the Andes and in the jungles, they knew about that prophecy, and they started to share their teaching back with the Western people. And that's why we have now so much more influx of knowledge and teachers. They were hiding all those years, all those 500 years. A lot of the shamans that are those shamanic traditions that we have, they in Ecuador, legally, they gave them, the shamans, the right to practice their language and their culture and to perform healing. Not only in 1970s, we, the occupiers, forbade those people that occupied Latin America from practicing their language, practicing their culture, traditions, and healing, and the shamanic traditions. So what we have now is those people who did it in hiding for so many years, coming back, reviving old traditions, and we can see that also in the Celtic tradition in other countries people are now feeling more secure to practice earth medicine in a way. But for many years it was forbidden. So that's the prophecy of the condor and the eagle, and it doesn't really matter who brought it up, if it invented or if it's real. Call for the return of the feminine energy into our lives, which means more senators, more congresswomen, more prime ministers, more people who make decisions in corporations, more decisions that are come from the heart, more come from the collectiveness of responsibility, not from power, not from big corporations trying to rape the earth, but for big cooperation, taking care of the community and the earth. So in many ways, it's a return of shamanism.
I love it. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. How can people who are interested in working with you, how can they contact you and schedule sessions and work with you?
So all the information is really on my website, which is my name.com, itzhakbeery.com. And you can scroll through it. There is a schedule of events. I do a lot of these webinars and teachings in better times, not in the Corona times. I travel a lot around the world and take groups to the Amazon, which I'm still thinking about doing. And then you over there you'll see a navigation bar. It's called healing, so you can book a session. I offer two different ones, one short one and one longer one. And in normal times, I do limpia, that's all-encompassing ceremony. But right now, it's a little too risky to do. Yeah, but I invite you to email me, ask me questions. I'm pretty good at answering, and sometimes it takes me longer, but I'm trying to really answer everybody.
Thank you so much. And if you want to read one of Itzhak's books, he's written 3 books: The Gift of Shamanism, Visionary Power, Ayahuasca Dreams, and Journeys to the Other Realms. And then Shamanic Transformations, True Stories of Moment of Awakening. And then the third one, Shamanic Healing, Traditional Medicine for the Modern World. So all of those books are available on Amazon, and I'm sure many other online platforms. So check those out and go to his website, Itzhak Beery, ITZHAKBEERY.com. And again, thank you so much for taking time and talking with us today, Itzhak.
Well, thank you so much, Lotte. It's really a pleasure and great time to spend with you. Great pleasure.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Dr. Lottie, Science with Soul. Make sure you are subscribed so you will be notified of new episodes as they become available. To book a session with me or to sign up for a workshop or to see me as a physician, please visit drlottie.com or divinespiritualessence.com. My book, Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul, is available online at Amazon as well as other online platforms worldwide.